We've been waiting for this day.
I'm so excited to be here. Part of the reason I'm obsessed with questions is because they're my love language. A lot of men don't ask questions.
They surely don't.
Oh, yeah.
I went in that day and I just went with my gut. And my gut was so wrong.
I want to get into, obviously, your egg freezing journey.
I was shocked at how little I knew.
I bet.
It's not talked about. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what's going to happen to your body. Listen, before I had therapy, I call it PSA, pre-self-actualization.
Trademark that shit.
I learned a few things. I learned one, sometimes it's okay to fail on live TV. First of all, you guys are such good journalists. You did amazing research. I'm so impressed. I feel so
putting that on my tombstone from you.
Let's talk about Danielle. We are so excited to have her on the podcast. And this was such a long-awaited conversation. And it was so fruitful and so amazing. So I'm going to skip trying to explain it to you because I will never do a good enough job. But let me just tell you about her because she's amazing. Danielle Robay is a TV host and journalist. She's currently the host of Hello Sunshine's daily show podcast called The Brightside, as well as her own podcast, Pretty Smart, which is her personal love letter to women everywhere, inviting them into thought-provoking conversations with some of today's most dynamic voices. Formerly, Danielle hosted E's while you were streaming, as well as worked as a correspondent for NBC. You've seen her on HLN's Dr. Drew, E, Extra, The Steve Harvey Show, and NBC's First Look. With a loyal social media following of over 350,000 followers across platforms, she's chatted with everybody from Taylor Swift and Michael B. Jordan to Viola Davis and Tom Hanks. For a decade, Danielle has studied the art of conversation. Even Larry King, her former mentor, has commented on her compelling interview style by saying, Danielle is the millennial Barbara Walters. She has the ability to make people feel seen, which also, by the way, lends itself to why she has this incredible card game, which is called Question Everything, which we play a little bit at the end, which features 52 cards for deeper conversations.
Can't wait for you to meet her.
Enjoy our conversation with Danielle. It's a very
I always
big deal.
say one of my core childhood memories is the day Meredith Vieira left the Today Show. Like it really sticks out of my. I was like addicted to the Today Show in the morning before high school. Like that sticks out in my brain as a core. Could not tell you. I went from like the VH1 music videos in the morning to like Today Show obsessive for no rhyme or reason.
Were you a TRL watcher? Like, did you race home from school to watch TRL?
Yes, but I was also like, I'm 30, so I'm like slightly young for that. So I missed. Okay. I was like on the end tail of that.
Yeah, that's where I was.
I'm 33, and I'm like, oh wow, those 3 years.
My husband is. They really do with like childhood content. You and I are like, have you watched the new documentary about Nickelodeon?
I can't. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, but some of the like all that versus like I didn't watch.
You didn't watch all that?
But like, no, I did watch all that. I didn't watch Ariana Grande.
Oh, but you didn't watch Drake and Josh.
Oh, I watched Drake and Josh. See, that's the line.
3 years.
That's the line. Yeah. They really should.
The line is, did you watch Drake and Josh? And was Justin Bieber your childhood crush? Because like mine was Backstreet Boys.
Right. Mine was Nick Lachey.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're kind of there.
Yeah, we're kind of there. It's interesting. Okay, let's dive in because we have a lot to talk about.
I know we do.
We're so excited that you're here. We've been waiting for this day.
I'm so excited to be here. I love podcasts where like two friends are talking are my favorite type of podcast. I'm so happy.
You came to the right place.
3 friends now, baby.
Wait, Meadow, did you know that Danielle and Zoe have the exact same birthday?
Shut up. No.
Yeah. Yes.
Wait, so what timing? I was like, you got to have different big threes. You have the same sun sign, but different big threes. I don't know how deep in astrology you are.
I'm not like super deep, but we just had Channy Nicholas on the show and she gave me a little bit of a reading.
Oh
really
my
lucky.
gosh.
I know it was really lucky. But I'm the most Capricorn. Everything is in Capricorn. I was born during an eclipse. So every astrologer that reads my birth chart is always like, oh, this is weird.
I love that. I love that for you.
What are you guys?
I am. Yeah. Well, so you're the most Capricorn. I am the most Libra. I have like 4 Libra placements.
I feel like this is why we click already because Capricorn and Libra, I've dated Libras. I feel like we get along.
Yeah. We get along. You guys kind of intimidate me. But in a way where like, I really fucking respect you and you intimidate me in a way where like, you guys work a lot harder than I can show up for. And it's intimidating, you know?
I'll give you one back.
I'm just trying to keep up.
I feel like Libras have the aesthetic, and the eye that I dream of. I can never keep up aesthetically.
Fair. So we can trade though. We can trade.
Mhm.
We can swap strengths.
Yeah, Meadow's a Libra. I'm a Taurus. So that's why I
But you have
some
a Cap
Tauruses.
moon.
I have a
So you
Capricorn
guys
moon.
are
No, I have a Capricorn rising.
My
Oh, my
best
bad.
friend in the whole world is a Taurus. I feel
They're
like
the
Capricorns and
best.
Tauruses really.
We do, 'cause
Yeah.
earth signs understand each other in a different way. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm sorry, I love earth signs. I love earth signs.
True.
And I think we're just cool. We're just
You're
cool.
cool,
Tauruses are
Do you
grounded.
guys,
unproblematic.
like, ever make friendships or decisions based off of astrology?
No.
No, because people's whole charts feed into it. It's like you can't just typecast to one sign, but I
Mhm.
do think it's a really fun tool to get to know each other.
Do
But I
you?
don't make decisions on.
You're like, "No."
No, never, because I do find that because Capricorns are I do identify with a lot of the, like, what would it be, like, the characteristics of a
Yeah.
Capricorn?
Yeah.
And so I do find that, like, with men, I, like, love a Cancer man because he sort of,
Mm.
like, opens me up in a way that I
Mhm.
am a little bit more serious and, like, to the point and hard-nosed.
Yeah.
Totally.
Um, I do notice I kinda like that, but I would never, like, date someone based on that, and people get really into it,
Oh, they get
Oh,
real
yeah.
into it.
especially
Yeah.
in LA.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the mecca of zodiac
Truly.
bullshit.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie though, no, we
I'm like,
move
"We're
me
not going down
on.
this road. We're done.
Move
We're
me
Okay.
on. I'm
flipping
gonna
this
keep going.
conversation." Okay.
Yeah.
I need to tell the people how we met because it's a pretty cute story in
We had a meet
terms
cute.
we had a meet cute,
Oh.
and it was very definitive of trust your timing, which I thought
Mm.
was great. So I have a friend, Maxine, who is wonderful and an incredible creative. And during one of our little day dates together, I mentioned to her, I was like, I really want to get more into hosting. I want to moderate more. I want to speak on panels. And she kept it in her brain. So you got to tell people, especially the people you trust and that have your best interest in heart, what you want to do. And months later, I got a call from her. And she was like, "Hey, I'm moderating this panel at a summit at USC. I'm actually going to be out of town. I put your name in. Are you interested in doing it?" And I was like, yes. Immediate fear, but like that fear of good discomfort that's going to lead to growth.
Yeah.
And I said yes. And then she said, "Great, I'll loop you in with the team." They immediately sent me the list of panelists. Danielle was one of the panelists. And I was like, "Oh my God, this woman's amazing. Your background, everything you've done, the way that you tell stories, the type of journalism you do." I was like, she's amazing. And I was so excited to get to moderate that conversation with you. And then I was you don't understand how much it meant to me for you to come up to me after and say, "You did a really good job. Like, you're good at this." That stuck with me so much, truly.
So, can I jump in really quick?
Oh,
I don't wanna
go,
cut you.
yes.
I don't ever say anything I don't mean. That's part of the Capricorn in me.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I was pretty blown away by you because I have done a lot of these panels and, moderating a panel is harder than people think, and
Yeah.
people get nervous on stage and they can get a little cold or they don't acknowledge the audience. And Gab, you were just effervescent and so thoughtful and you did your research, which I freaking love,
Yeah.
and you made everybody, the role of a moderator is to make everybody feel, it's like an invitation. You made everybody feel
Mhm.
welcome.
Thank
And so how could I not go up to you and give you your flowers? You deserve them. You were
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. Thank
And it
you. It
brought
meant
us
so
together.
much.
I feel like I made a new friend.
Yeah, same. And I remember we very quickly decided to have lunch after. And once we got together, first of all, we like booked that out like a month and a half in advance. And I was like, "I already like this woman." And then
And you sent me a calendar invite as soon as we booked it out. And I was like, I like this woman.
Yeah.
there you go. And when we got together,
Mm.
it was so amazing and refreshing because you looked at me. First of all, I'm trying to break more into an industry that you're so seasoned in and so talented in. And sometimes also, like, we're not that far apart in age too. And sometimes that can be met in a weird way where you're like seen as your competition, or I'm like trying to like find out your secrets, and people can be really weird about it.
Yeah.
And you from day one were like, "There's space for all of us. How can I help you?" And that's exactly what you said to me. And you have just been such an amazing inspiration and expander for me. And I'm just so grateful for the way in which we met and the way that our friendship is unfolding.
That's super sweet of you to say. I feel like you gave me the opening to do that without getting so sappy. Um,
Mm.
it's really exciting and also easy to help somebody who is already helping themselves. Like, you have a foothold in the industry and you are really talented. And so I want to see you win.
Thanks.
Um, and yeah, it's when I moved to LA, I was so hungry for success. I'm from Chicago. I moved right after college at Wisconsin-Madison, and I was so hungry. All I could think about was like, how do I meet this person and how do I get into this room and how do I hold that mic flag? And I met this guy, Steve Carlston, who was the GM of NBC. I met him serendipitously. I walked into his office one day and I pitched him to be the entertainment reporter there because they didn't have one. And he kind of giggled and in a sweet way. And he was like, listen, Danielle, I can't hire you. You just moved here. This is the second largest market in the country, but I will be your friend. And I saw how he lived his life. And he just is of service. And
Mm.
he does it with boundaries. He doesn't do it if you
Yeah.
don't deserve it, right? Like, if you don't help yourself, if you don't have, he's thoughtful about who he pours into, but when he pours so greatly. And I looked at him and I thought, that's who I wanna be, and that's how I wanna make people feel. And so, um, this sounds corny, but I'm grateful for anybody, including you, who shows up in my life in that way because it gives me an opportunity to do that. And it's so fun to talk. Like, I've been doing this for like 10, 11, 12 years. It's like so fun to talk about trade secrets and like, do
Yeah.
this, don't do that. Like, it is. And you're going to do it for people one day, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, love
I
it.
know you already do with your writing.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Service is really one of those I, like, love a Midwesterner, and I was like, "This makes sense because my mom's whole family's from Chicago, and I was raised that service to others is, like, the number one thing you're meant to do in life." And sometimes I take that a little far where the compassion fatigue comes in or
Yeah.
you have to remember to pour your cup before pouring others, and that we've
Mhm.
unpacked core wounds on here, and mine is, like, I'm good enough if I don't serve another person a day in my life.
It's really
And
hard.
yet right? But at
Yeah.
the same time, like, it is such a core of also, like, where we find happiness and joy and meaning. That also feels like
Yes.
a Midwesterner trait, like, y'all just take care of others.
Well, you just said y'all. Are you Southern?
My husband
My
is.
husband is.
Alabama. I know, now I've got my dad's from New York, my mom's from Chicago, my husband's from Alabama. I'm like, my accent doesn't make sense anymore.
Wait, where did you grow up?
San Diego.
So that's so interesting because I haven't. Do you feel like you grew up with community?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a huge part of it. Like, I feel like I grew up with community too. Do you
Yeah.
feel that way?
Yes.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I did. I think that's also just comes with, like, the immigrant thing.
Mhm.
Community
Yeah.
is really everything, and it's been cool to watch the way in which that, grows and changes the older that you get, and when you, like me, left my hometown and have made adult friendships and how I can find community in that, and then watching, dating somebody who also was raised around so much community and, like, sharing a life with someone where you can just, like, bring sort of all of that together is really there's so much power in community. There's we were just talking about this on another podcast about the individualistic society that we live in and how we need we need to lean on each other and ask for help.
Mhm.
There's this great book called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. I think I
Mhm.
have it over here.
Ooh,
I love the color
haven't read that.
coordinated
This is
stitching
the
behind
book.
Coordination,
you.
yeah.
It's a really long book, so you may wanna
Okay.
read the cliff notes, but it's, um, it's about the breakdown of community in American society, and in the 50s and
Oh,
60s,
wow.
there were bowling clubs every week. So on a Wednesday, everyone would
Yeah.
meet at, like, 7 PM, they'd wear the same shirt with their name on it, they each had their bowling ball, and they would go and have dinner and talk about their nights and their days and their weeks and their families. And he talks about how American society has become so individualistic, and, like, the
Mm,
metaphor is bowling, and I just think it's
I
kinda
love that.
brilliant, but we're missing so much, uh, by not having that.
It's so true. On it I mean, I have a couple questions about community and especially, like, female community and even, like,
Yeah.
motherhood and that whole journey, but before we get ahead of ourselves, we have to ask you our first TMV question, truly welcome you to the show, Danielle. what are you unpacking? Take it whichever way comes first.
I'm actually, so not people won't know this, but we moved this interview. It was supposed to be a few weeks ago. And I'm actually thinking now I know why that happened, because I wouldn't have been able to give you a good answer a few weeks ago.
Ooh.
But I just got this new job doing a podcast called The Brightside. And for years I thought, if I only get this job, it'll allow me to just kind of like breathe. I'll feel good. I'll know that I'm worth it, that all of the sacrifice was worth it. And I thought I would feel something. And then I got this job and I didn't feel anything. I actually felt a little bit of sadness. Um, and I realized that I think that I need to unpack what my personal life looks like. I think I girl bossed a little too hard. So I'm trying to unpack what that looks like and what changes I need to make in order to make sure that I feel full and happy outside of work, because I poured a lot into the work part.
Girl bossed a little too close to the sun.
Yes, exactly, Meadow.
Was the sadness in a way of I got the thing and the feelings didn't come? Or was it like I got the thing and now I don't know where the next goal post is? Or do you kind of have a feeling of like where that sadness landed?
That's a good question. I think part of it was I thought a feeling would come and it didn't.
Yeah.
The expectation of it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I thought it would feel different. So maybe there's like grief around it in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I realized, when you launch a show, it's a really frustrating process, no matter who or what network you're launching with. It's just a really tough process. And so I would come home from certain days and just feel frustrated. And I would be alone in my apartment with the frustration. And I was like, I feel like I wouldn't be taking this so seriously if I had a partner to just like laugh with and watch a movie with. And I realized I haven't been prioritizing my personal life enough. I never thought I would be this person. Like I saw women talk about it and I never thought that that would be me, but I think it's me.
But do you feel like weird
I hear that.
shame at all around that?
No, I feel grateful that I'm noticing it. I've been in therapy enough
Totally.
to know, like, just notice things,
Awareness
right?
is the first step, baby. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the awareness. I'm also grateful for the feeling because I think I'm 33. I think some of my friends had this at like 29 or 30 where they were like, I'm ready for the next stage of life. I'm ready to be married. I'm ready to have kids. And I like genuinely did not feel that at all. I was like, wanted to travel. I wanted to work my ass off. I wanted to moderate panels. I wanted to host podcasts. And I think I'm feeling it a little bit.
If you're feeling it now, maybe having to do the thing got you to the person in this point in time that you need to be in order to attract the partner that you want and deserve.
Yeah.
I love
Like
that
maybe you
outlook,
needed
Meadow.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good reframer. You call me. I am a good reframer. But please,
Thanks
Gabby,
for
I
saying
interrupted
that.
you.
Well,
Yeah, I mean
similar,
it.
you've said this to me before, Danielle, where I was talking to you about just wanting to be in certain rooms. And you said to me, you probably were not ready to be in those rooms at that time. And I feel that in this way now with you, not to project that onto you at all.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, if the
Don't
timing
use
was
my
divine
words
with you coming
against
on
me.
here.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like maybe I would have chosen a partner that wasn't the right fit. And now I'm the person that I need to be to choose a partner. I think that's a really good point.
and I
You both
brought
are really smart and good at therapy.
thank you.
God, I've
Thanks.
been in it long enough. I should be.
Yeah, damn, Meadow. At this point, fuck.
No, truly.
I brought up the shame piece too, just because there's a lot of pressure on us as women with careers to give 100% in every single bucket that they choose
Yes.
to lean into. And one of the things that I love about you is how openly you share about fears around things like motherhood. You went on Lizzie Math's podcast, who we love, and she came on Thoughts May Vary as well, and she's a gem.
She's
And
amazing.
that convo was amazing. And I felt really seen by that conversation because I think sometimes I know that I'll feel this like yuckiness when I admit that I don't want to have kids until I've accomplished certain career milestones. I feel like society looks at me as like not maternal, or that I prioritize career too much and there's something wrong with me because of it. And it makes me feel like weird. And you were really open about that. And now that you're saying this unpacking that you're going through, has your fear, even after that conversation with Lizzie, shifted around that conversation?
It's interesting you say that because I went on Lizzie's podcast, and her podcast is all about motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, like, I feel nervous that my career is gonna like plummet after I have kids because I'm in a like front facing career. It's not like accounting. Do you know what I mean? And so she was like, I think it might actually do the opposite.
Yeah.
For her, it did. And it's cool to have expanders in your life. I think we have mentors for work, but it's like important to have personal mentors too. And that's something I learned later. And so to see her live motherhood in a way that I know it's not perfect, but it looks, she's doing it in a way that looks good to me, that I'm like,
Same.
okay, that makes me feel like I can do it.
Yeah.
You feel that way too?
Oh, yeah. Our conversation, I told her that during our conversation. I was like, you're a remarkable representation of somebody who is like a very cozy, involved mom, but is also killing it in your career. And you see, I know balance is a bullshit excuse and does not exist, but you
Yeah.
seem to navigate through things in a really interesting way that's really appealing. And to me, what I think about when I visualize myself as a mother, how I ideally see it,
And
which I
Yeah.
think is
hold
really
like a
cool.
multifaceted identity still, right? Like
Mhm.
away from balance, but just like being able to have still multiple identities, and motherhood doesn't have to take over completely who you are. You can
Mhm.
still give yourself to other passions. But I want to get into obviously your egg freezing journey and what you talked about on that podcast, because
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen anyone be as intimate and open about egg freezing as you are in that
Yeah.
Oh,
series and your highlight on your Instagram. Like it was incredible. And I was frankly very shocked by how little I knew. And I'm kind of assuming that you got that a lot because I feel pretty well versed in like sexual education. And I was shocked.
I was shocked at how little I knew.
I
It
bet. Like
it
it's
was
not talked
crazy.
about.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
talked about. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what's gonna happen to your
Yes.
body. I went in
Mm-mm.
for my first ultrasound and I was like, "Where are my follicles? What are follicles? What are eggs?"
Yeah.
I
Literally.
was so and I took science classes and women's health classes in college. Like, it was
Totally.
all really confusing, but I'm really glad that you felt like I was open because, my goal in sharing it was one of my girlfriends who was 36 when she froze her eggs, she did it in LA and I got to see her whole process. And seeing it really made me less scared because I was like,
Mm.
okay,
Yeah.
she did it. It wasn't so bad. I can do it. And I was like, if I had seen somebody do that online in a way that was open, because people talk about it, but they don't actually show you, here's what my stomach looks like. Here's what the
Exactly. Yeah.
needles look like.
Yep.
I was like, if I can do that because I have a lot of women who follow me, I'm like, if I can do that for women, then maybe they won't be so afraid to embark on it.
Yeah.
So that means a lot to me. Thank you for that, Meadow.
Hey everyone, popping in to say thank you to all of the amazing people who listen and watch this podcast. We're so grateful for each and every one of you and truly cannot say thank you enough for tuning in every single week.
In order for us to keep bringing you all great conversations and continue building our community and raising the bar, we're asking you for some simple and free support. Subscribe to our channel, follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and keep up with us on social at Thoughts May Vary Pod.
And if you're looking to dive even deeper, you can join our exclusive Patreon community and download Co-Create, our digital manifestation journal filled with over 150 prompts to help guide your curiosity and unlock new layers of yourself.
Thanks for being here. Was there anything that surprised you about the process of sharing that or of the response you got?
I was shocked at how many women had been through it.
Oh, wow.
They had incredible advice. I shared hoping that people could gain information, and actually they gave me information. It was like a really weird turn of events because egg freezing is the first half of IVF. So a lot of women had done it and they were DMing me tips that the doctor's offices were not telling me.
Like the
And they
ice,
were
right? I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
yes, the
Yeah.
ice,
Yeah.
um, I didn't do this, but I wish I would have. Like, you could do acupuncture for a month leading up to it.
Oh.
There were all these things. I have them on the highlights on my Instagram, but I was shocked at what they shared with me, even down to, this is TMI, but like at the end, it's really from all the medicine, it's like very difficult to go to the bathroom, and it's really important that you do that. And so they were like, take this from CVS at 7 p.m. the night before you have the surgery. And it was like, no one else is going to tell me that but these amazing women.
That's what I need to know, because if I'm constipated out of nowhere, I will run my car into a wall. Like, I need someone to tell me that. So thank you for not telling me that, because it's good to know. Should I choose to make that decision? No, not right now. Not right now. It's not something that's on my radar, but who knows? I think it's an incredible resource
to know
to
options.
have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To know your resources, to know your options. Like, this is the education we need to be equipping women with. And this is the power of community. Because if we're not going to get it in our public education system, we have to get it from each other.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the power of social media.
Oh, totally.
It's so beautiful.
You said something really interesting that I wanted to touch on, where you were saying how you were really surprised about all the things. You thought you were going on there to show and hopefully help somebody else, but then you ended up learning a lot as well. And I think, speaking about sort of the mentorship dynamic that we've had, that's something that I've noticed in your style and how you are, that you sort of level the playing field with mentorship. And I know I have a big tendency of putting people on a pedestal. And my therapist told me recently, she was like, the moment you put somebody on a pedestal, you automatically take yourself out of your authenticity, even a
Oh, wow.
percentage. And it's been a really good thing to keep in my brain when having these mentorship dynamic relationships. And it's like a fun little rebrand on it.
Yeah.
And I like that approach that you have of, you're a student, but also a teacher, and it can go both ways. Have you always approached mentorship that way, or was that something that you learned later in life?
No one's ever asked me that. Thank you for that question.
Mm.
No, I actually felt very similar to how you described feeling. I really put people on pedestals. I kind of looked at people when I moved to LA and just deferred to them and thought, oh, they must be the expert in the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're the expert in the room and you don't even know it. And I think I interviewed a child psychologist, and she said, I was like, how do you raise a confident child? And she said, competence breeds confidence. And so by doing, you become more confident. And I think over the years, as I've done more TV, done more social media content, done more writing, it like my confidence has expanded, and I'm willing to now be the expert in the room. But I would say that didn't happen until like 30, 31. And having certain jobs helped that. So there's no timeline for that. But I will say that the best mentor relationships I've ever had have been a two-way street. And I think people constantly think, oh, mentor, can you help me? But really, it's like, hey, have you seen this article? I thought of you. Have you checked out this person's social media? They might be interesting for you. I think if like the mentee can add value to the mentor's life, that two-way relationship is so much more powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you tell the story about meeting Larry King for the first time and how you went in to be like, let me ask him questions so he can teach me, and went into that breakfast with that perspective. And then he just asked you questions the entire time and kind of gave you that two-way street.
Yeah.
And that feels so indicative of who you are as a person and an interviewer and a host, and how you approach these conversations, and the art of a good question and the art of question making, which I know is so imperative to you. I'm curious, like, what have you learned about the power of questions opening up that two-way street, or opening up like a really authentic connection between two people?
First of all, you guys are such good journalists. You did amazing research. I'm so impressed. I feel so
putting that on my tombstone from you.
Listen, no shade to anyone, but I have heard you on interviews where you're such an incredible journalist, and you can tell that like the questions are kind of lagging. So then you start asking questions. And I told Meadow, I said, we're not letting Danielle
her
do that.
I
was like, I see through it.
First
We're
of all,
coming
the
in,
fact that
baby.
you pick up on that is unbelievable.
Girl, please.
We had a game plan just in case you tried to do it to us. Like, we're ready for you.
You did so much research. Wow. Thank you. I feel honored. But yeah, Larry King, first of all, changed my life because he taught me how to ask a proper question. I think part of the reason I'm obsessed with questions is because they're my love language. Like if I could add a love language to the list, it feels like somebody cares about being here with you in this moment more than being anywhere else. And it's truly an invitation. And who doesn't want to be invited somewhere? You know, like that's just the best feeling, is to feel like you're invited to the party, invited to the dinner, invited to the family,
included.
Like whatever that is. Yeah. That's why I think dating has been so hard for me, because a lot of men don't ask questions.
They surely don't.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting better. I see it. But yeah. No, I think that, listen, before I had therapy, I call it PSA, pre-self-actualization.
Love.
I
trademark that shit.
Yes. I never
put it on a t-shirt. That is funny.
I give it to you. I never asked myself one question. I was working at Entertainment Tonight and Extra and in all these places, and I would ask people questions for a living, and I never asked myself one. And then I started my life got tough, right? Like I went through heartbreak, I had family stuff, and I started going to therapy. And I realized that I never asked myself one question. And once I started doing that and started knowing myself and actually practicing the art of asking questions, totally starts with yourself, everything in my life changed. And I'm not saying this to exaggerate. When you ask people great questions, and you guys know this, you can feel like something changes in the room when someone asks a really good question. You can be having like mundane conversation. Someone asks something incisive, and the energy, like you can feel it in your body. Everything changes. So when you ask a good question to somebody, they feel connected to you. They feel like you care. They remember you. Like people go into networking dinners and they want to be the most interesting person there. The actual key is just to ask a great question. You'll never be more memorable. Yeah. So yeah, I stand with my full chest on questions.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember going to this panel when I was still working at AD, and a friend of mine who at the time she was Anna Wintour's assistant, and now she is like head of events at Vogue. She kills it. Jessie Nichols. And I went to a panel that she was speaking on, and I remember being in that panel, and there were people in the room that I wanted to meet. And I was like, I'm just going to ask questions during this panel so that they remember me. And then what's funny is that I just interviewed somebody from my newsletter who we interned together at Oscar de la Renta back in the day. And then we were at Condé Nast together, and she was at Vogue. And she said the same thing, that she would do the same thing in panels. She would go into the room and make sure that she asked a bunch of questions so that people would remember her name and her face.
It's counterintuitive because people really feel like, let me say something meaningful or let me compliment someone. Just ask a great fucking question and they remember you. Also, shout out to your newsletter. I got a new one in my inbox today and I'm so excited to read it.
Another question for you. Because we like interesting words here, and we don't like the word favorite, right?
How do you know that?
Because I've heard you say it.
We do our research. Yeah.
Well, it's not that I don't like the word. I just realized that I was asking questions like, what's your favorite this? And it was like not descriptive. Like, what does that even mean?
Right. Exactly.
It changes every day.
Exactly. And you can take it too many directions, and I don't like that. Yeah. What has your most challenging interview taught you?
Okay. I interviewed Jeremy. I did a live morning show in Chicago a few years ago, and Jeremy Piven came on the show, and he came on right after he was accused by 8 women as part of the Me Too movement. And he was coming on the show and doing a tour in Chicago, where he's from, and also where I'm from, to promote his comedy stand-up. And so I was like, I can't just ignore these accusations. I have to ask about them. I'm fine asking about his comedy, but I have to ask about them. And I called so many of my mentors to see how the F I was supposed to prepare for this interview. Do I ask it at the top of the interview? Do I ask it at the end of the interview? Because if I ask it at the end, do I look like I didn't ask? Am I a sucker?
Right.
If I ask at the top, is he going to be angry and walk out?
Or defensive or yeah.
Yes. And everybody gave me a different answer.
Oy.
And so I went in that day and I just went with my gut, and my gut was so wrong. And I was so mad that
Wait, what did the gut say?
my gut was like, don't be as, 'cause I really think it was actually, I felt like I had so much to prove because I was
Yeah.
still kind of young and
Mm,
green, and I was like, be strong. I was the only woman that had interviewed him. All men in Chicago had
wow.
interviewed him, and they didn't ask. And I
Yeah,
was
of
like,
course.
do it for the girls,
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
the question, and then talk about the rest of it. And you don't have to ask in it. I learned, don't ask in an accusatory way
Mhm.
Mhm,
with him, because
mhm.
it's an opportunity for that person to like speak on it,
Yeah.
whatever
Mhm.
that is. And I asked it was my first question. And you guys probably know this by now. It should be the last question. It should not be the first question. Like, warm them up, okay?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I learned a few things. I learned, one, sometimes it's okay to fail on live TV. I learned that not everybody has the answer. Like, you have to look within.
Yeah.
It's okay to, like, all these people that had been doing all of
Mm.
this for 20 years all gave me a different answer. Maybe there wasn't a right answer. I was the first and only, it was like the only time I like fell flat on my freaking face. And
Oof,
I
that
was
hurts.
nervous and I
Yeah.
asked the question. I think you could maybe look and see my hands were shaking, and it kind of reframed everything for me. I learned, one, that when somebody is like kind of in trouble and you're interviewing them, you're actually have to frame it in your mind that like you're doing them a favor by giving them an opportunity to answer the question that is on everybody's mind.
Mhm.
And Julia Borstein taught me that, actually. She's at CNBC. And secondly, it taught me to freaking fail, and I hate failing, and I was so ashamed of the interview. I was so worried it was gonna be on the internet forever. It's not, thank God, because his lawyers called the station to take it down.
You were
I
like,
love that.
"Please."
But man,
Oh my god.
yeah, I think it's okay to mess up, and I hated learning that lesson.
What a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, and it was a great lesson because I'd done interviews since then with really delicate subjects. I interviewed Jada Pinkett Smith on my podcast, Pretty
You
Smart,
killed
and
Yeah,
it.
you
thank
did.
you. But that Jeremy Piven moment taught me how to handle a more complicated person, and to like,
Mhm,
I didn't treat Jeremy like a person because I was too nervous. And I really went in
mhm.
wanting to treat Jada like a person. And I learned that from that
Yeah.
fail.
And you did, and you also still asked important questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
You handled it
That's
really well. Okay, speaking of lessons, something that I love about your ethos and everything we've been talking about today is that you lead with a always a student mentality.
Mm.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
learned that
that
from Oprah.
it is so smart to live your life that way for so many different reasons. And I'm wondering, because you lead with curiosity first, what is something really, we asked like the challenging thing, what is something really beautiful that you have been surprised by, that you've learned by
Mhm.
leading your life with curiosity first?
I am always prepared to be amazed, like by every conversation,
Yeah.
because when you lead with curiosity, you don't know what you're gonna find. Um,
Mhm,
and you're digging around enough usually to find something. And so I have learned so much, um, from taxi drivers, from waiters, from babysitters, from I just did a sound bath, and I met the woman who was she was my Uber driver, and I got into her car, and I started asking her questions, and I was like, "You have the best energy. What do you do, like, on a daily basis?" And so I think, curiosity has given me that sense of awe that people feel when they go to the
mm,
Grand Canyon, because 'cause I'm
mhm.
always amazed by people and the human spirit.
That's a
I really
really beautiful way to live. Sorry to interrupt you, Meadow. Go ahead.
I
No, it
mean, you
is.
guys do. You live it.
Yeah, I feel that so deeply. I, really resonate, everyone listening knows I really resonate with this spiritual teacher, Ram Dass, and he has a phrase that came to mind as we were speaking that, like, everyone is God in drag.
Yes.
And, like, if you approach with that curiosity and you're, like, looking for that or looking for the opportunity to learn someone, it's like Alice down the rabbit hole, like, you never know what you're gonna experience and what you can learn from someone. I think it's such a beautiful and open way to find connection in a world where we have a loneliness epidemic.
Yes. I mean, Gabby and I were talking the other day. It's like a high communication, low connection world. And so
Yeah,
live
exactly.
your
Yeah,
life
perfect way to
with
say that.
curiosity. I love that quote. I've never heard that.
Isn't he?
It's
I mean,
Meadow's favorite quote ever.
he is
because it
my
is that.
guru, not guru. He's so cool. I'll send you some fun lectures.
Okay,
He's
good.
my
I
guy. I
love
have a
it.
tattoo from his book. Like, I'm all about it.
Wait,
I'm all
which
about it.
tattoo?
I'll show you. It goes all the way down my arm and it ends and it says here to remember the present. And it like
Wait,
kind
it's
of
really
wraps from my
pretty.
armpit
Oh,
all
it's
the way.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. He has
Wait,
a
you
book.
have to come to the next coffee that we have so I can see it in person.
Oh,
yeah.
Hello, I'm dying to. Please. I'm moving up there eventually so then we can have coffee dates and be good friends. I'm curious. I wanted to ask you one of my favorite questions. What's something you used to believe in that you've since changed your mind on?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I do have a list. I knew you would love this. I have a list of like great party questions on my phone. And I went through it for this interview to ask you. I was like,
I love this. When we have coffee, when you move here, I need to see the list.
Well, we're going to combine lists. We'll make a shared note.
We'll start a Google Doc. Yeah. What is something I used to believe in? I'm still working on this, but I used to believe in the power of saying yes. I love to allow a little randomness into my life.
Yeah.
I think it makes for like some beautiful moments and unexpected things. But as I've gotten busier, or I shouldn't even say busier. I think as I've gotten older and the relationships I do have are more solidified and my time I want to spend it differently. Mm-hmm. I realized that you can't say yes all the time. And when you say no, you're actually saying yes to yourself. And I was that Midwest pleaser thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It still comes out. I really have to, it's a tough one for me, but I used to answer every email, every LinkedIn message. If someone was like, hey, I need help, I was like, how can I help you?
Oh, yeah.
And I think I don't believe in saying yes all the time anymore. Like to dinner parties, to any of it. I think there is power in saying no.
There absolutely
Beautiful
is power in saying no.
You seem like you're good at that, Gabby.
What's my Capricorn rising? I will take it.
You only say no to me.
Well, to you. But it's taken a while. I have that
exactly.
Yeah. I have that like green perspective. I think it's also just from like, I was a fucking great intern and then I was a fucking great assistant. And I think I have that like, whatever you need, I got it. I'm a fixer mentality. And I'm trying to, I wouldn't even say unlearn it because I think those are incredible skill sets that I have, but just like make room for new skill sets because that has lended itself to me getting taken advantage of or taking rates that are way lower than I should or keeping myself stuck because I don't think that I can be the expert in the room in certain ways. So saying no has come with that. I think in my personal life, I'm a lot better at it than I have been in my career. Oh my God, in my personal life, I'm like, I'm not leaving my apartment. No to all your texts. But
you know what's weird is having, I see my friends with kids, they are much better at saying no because the priority is so clear.
Yeah.
And my goal is to like have that mentality before I have kids.
But also maybe like to Lizzie's point, that will come when you have kids. Can
we do it before then? Like,
okay. Can I tell you something? And I told Lizzie the same thing. Right when we interviewed Lizzie, I had just come from another psychic reading because it's where I spend all my money. And
because you're Cuban. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm Cuban. And exactly. I'm like,
by the way,
where's the nearest Santero? And
I also love tea leaves. Okay.
Love it. Yeah. She said something to me that I was like, that was rude, but really true. And she was like, why? I don't understand why you're trying to live the life that you're going to live when you're 40 right now. Relax.
Wait, what do you think she meant by that?
Well, we were talking about money and I was talking about financial stability before I have kids, before I get married, all this stuff. And obviously there's like a level of that I want, but I basically was like, if the starter home is not the home, that's the forever home, like, what are we going to do? And she was like, you need to stop, like chill because you're going to get there. And so I think that's been an interesting mentality with what we were just saying of maybe that will come when you have kids. Maybe you don't need that skill set in this exact set. You're already practicing it. You're already doing it. Like Lizzie said, it'll get better when you have kids.
Or maybe it won't.
Or maybe it won't.
Here's the thing, kids are expensive. No, but I think you're hitting on something. First of all, I think it's really courageous of you to share that, because people do not talk about financial insecurity or anxiety in a real way. They talk about it in platitudes, and it bothers me because women feel it, single women or like unmarried women feel it in a different way too. And there is sometimes like unlearning you have to do too, because like you don't want to pick a partner based on that at all. But it comes in for a lot of people. I had to do unlearning around it. And I think all the things you're feeling are really normal. I felt everything that you just described, and I probably will feel it again at some point. Like, we're in an industry that ebbs and flows. So yeah, I think don't be hard on yourself. I think that is normal.
Thank you.
I think a big theme, like even from your unpacking to this, is just trust the timing. And like our timing is like, misdirections are redirections. And the timing always works out. You know how they say hindsight's always 20/20. It's such a platitude, but it's that perspective of like, oh, well, if I made the light, then I would have missed meeting this person because they would have left the party. And then, that effect, you really never know. So reminding yourself to come back to the ways to trust your own timing and enjoy the journey getting there, knowing it's inevitable that you get there.
Yeah.
Which is so much, it's so easy to say in this podcast and a lot harder to do in the moment when you're going through the thing. But whatever little ways can come bring us back to that, it's like that's the hope that gets you through it.
I think what you're saying is really powerful, because it's really just about faith. Yeah. You're saying like you have to have faith in yourself and faith that you will be taken care of.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. My faith used to waver more so.
I wanted to ask you about that because I've heard you speak about that and how someone came in. My whole approach to mental health is that spirituality is missing from mental health, because I think it hits those existential level questions. So I was very curious about your kind of like spiritual timeline. I know
that's really interesting,
end, but I'm dying to ask you about it.
I am Jewish. I grew up Jewish. But similar to a lot of Jewish people, I'm not very religious. It's like a cultural tie. And I didn't believe in God when I moved to LA. I was raised in a family where faith was almost like laughed at a little bit. Not laughed at, but like just like, we believe in science here,
Yeah.
And when I moved to LA, that guy Steve that I talked about, he was Mormon, and I saw how he lived his life, and it was less about religion and more about service, humility, friendship, leadership, faith, just faith in people, humanity, and self. And I was like, this is interesting, because everybody that I admire and all the books that I read, they all believe in something, and they believe in different religions, different gods, but they have faith in whatever that is. And I think spirituality in many ways is just faith in the universe. I actually think spirituality is a religion for a lot of people. Like, it is a millennial religion in a lot of ways. But to be in a profession where, every profession is so uncertain now, but I think when your profession is like incredibly uncertain, you're constantly betting on yourself, you almost have to develop a faith.
Yeah.
Otherwise you don't survive.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're just crying all the time.
You have to believe that it will come, and the timing will happen, and what will be is meant to be, because if you don't, you will go nuts. So I don't know if it was pushed on me, but I'm grateful for it, because I've done a lot of work on my faith, for sure. Can I ask quickly where you land on both of those things?
My two parents were super, super religious, like raised in a church, all boys Catholic school. My mom raised in church, whatever. Both of them lost young children in their life. Like my dad lost his first son. My mom lost her nephew, and both stopped believing in God or had faith. So I was raised completely no religion, nothing.
Wow.
And I watched my dad kind of go back to that in the last years of his life. And I, through navigating my own traumas and life experiences and studying mental health issues and psychology, found that there was a lack that I was missing that I filled by tapping into my own spirituality and finding Ram Dass lectures and tapping into this belief and like fully making this millennial age spirituality my religious practice. And that sent me so much farther than the very old school traditional mental health modalities.
Totally. You've helped me a lot with that. Like she's helped me a lot with getting comfortable that it's with my own personal relationship with the universe, with God, whatever your bigger belief is. And similarly, so I was raised kind of similar to you, Danielle, in the sense where my immediate family, like my parents were not very religious, but everyone around us was like Catholic Latins. And I went to an Episcopalian elementary school, and then I went to a non-denominational middle and high school. But my mom would take us to Catholic church in Spanish with like a 900-year-old fucking priest. And until we were like 12, and she was like, decide. Do you want to keep going? Do you not want to keep going? And to me, Catholicism never related because it was just a very fear-based religion, and it really deterred me from religion. And I saw kind of all the negative that comes with that. And it wasn't until, frankly, until I was, I think like in my early 20s that I started to kind of experiment with this idea of the universe and that there is something greater than us, and being okay if I don't know how to name it, if it's universe or God or whatever. And I don't know, I genuinely believe I come from like a line of witches. Like the women in my family are so fucking witchy. And so it's been so fun over the last, almost decade getting to be able to play with that and feel so tapped into the universe. Like I love when little things happen and I'll look up and I'm like, I know that was my grandma, or like, thanks angels, thanks guys. Like I love that dance. Like Meadow is always like, oh, the universe is flirting with us right now. And that's how I feel. And it just makes life fun. And it makes it exciting to be like, there's something out there so much greater than us. Oh my God, the pressure's not all on me. Like there's someone there helping me.
It's so much bigger than us. It's so much bigger than our stories. Yeah.
And Gabriella, it's so beautiful that you have Meadow, because I think people like me and you need a friend like Meadow who sees things differently. Because it helps our earth signs. We're so grounded. It helps us be a little bit more airy in a way that is crucial.
That we need. It helps our inner child shine a little bit.
Yeah. And my husband's a Taurus. So I'm like, oh, my two husbands, Gabby and Aaron, are Tauruses. But I get so in the clouds, which Gabby knows, that it is really that beautiful balance of like, I can help show you what it looks like up here, but then you guys also help me ground in reality in this plane, in this incarnation, like how to see that through and how to live those practices in the here and now in a way where I could just float away and conceptualize it and never do it.
I don't want to hijack your podcast, but I do have one question for you guys.
Tell us.
I know you guys why you started the pod, but to me, it's like developed a little bit. Do you still think of mental health in the way that you did when you started the podcast?
That's
obviously such a good question.
It's a good question.
Do you want to take it first, Gabby?
Sure. I want to think about it because no one's ever asked us that.
Yeah, beautiful question.
I think about it similarly in the way that there's always going to be nuance involved and it's ever changing. And I think about it the same way in the sense that in order to destigmatize, we need to make sure that conversations aren't always heavy and that there's room for joy in those conversations, which was one of the big foundations of this podcast. I think I approach it really differently in a way that I am not scared to talk in the way that I was scared to talk when I started this podcast.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel similarly to like the pillars you named being more evergreen. And yet I feel like I have a different understanding and perspective of mental health or spirituality or whatever all these concepts we speak to every single time I show up.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a new version of myself every single time I show up. And then there's also very specific ones. Like one of our earliest episodes is essentially me detailing out my brother's death by suicide and like the suicide prevention work that I've gone into and my beliefs around it. I don't resonate with like at least 60% of what I said in that episode anymore. From an advocacy perspective, from a destigmatization perspective, from an approach to suicide in general. So I love that we named the show Thoughts May Vary, because while some pillars remain true, I also expect them to be different and me to like very much disagree with myself the next time we record.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a sign of intelligence.
Is showing up differently?
It's like having a different thought or being able to change your mind.
Yeah.
And so I think it takes a lot of confidence to say what you just said, right? Like,
Oh,
I
thank you.
actually don't resonate with what I said.
Mhm.
And
Well,
yeah,
sometimes you feel like a paradox, so that's very validating to hear, 'cause sometimes you think, "Oh, I'm flighty," or, "Oh, it's a paradox," or, "Oh, I can't make up my mind," versus, no, you just meet the present moment differently every time you show up 'cause you have a new vessel to
You have new
digest it through.
information too.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I was
How
a political
stagnant.
science major,
So was
and
I.
you
What?
were?
Yeah.
I didn't know
I
that.
love this
How
for us.
cute.
You know, back in the day, like, the worst thing you could be as a politician was a flip-flopper. Like, that's
Right.
what they called John
Yeah,
Kerry. Like,
Yeah.
it was like,
yeah.
"Oh, he flip-flops," or there wasn't really a she, but there's not many, unfortunately. That now there's more women to say she flip-flops. But, I actually think that, like, obviously politics are more complicated than just this, but it would be great if they flip-flopped more. Like, we
Yeah.
want them to change their mind about things
Right.
as we learn more information.
No, please, like, get new information and change archaic systems that
Yes,
have
please
nothing to do
change
with
your
anything
mind.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, please, we're begging you.
Exactly,
It's very
exactly.
true.
So,
We
yeah,
could go on about this forever, but I wanna ask you our final question,
yes.
which so on your podcast, Pretty Smart, you end with having people pick a card from your amazing game. And so I wanted to end with you answering a question. Do you have a deck in front of you? Because if not, I'll just shuffle it until I find
I
one and then you
do.
say stop.
No, I have a
Okay.
deck right here.
Okay.
Okay. You
Meadow,
pick a
you have to
card.
send me your address so I can send you one.
No, 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 I'm gonna buy it.
This is so
No,
Absolutely
sweet.
not.
absolutely not. I'm sending it to
We're
you.
gonna fight about it.
Okay, you guys tell me when to stop.
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 That was
Good.
pretty good.
Yeah, that was good.
Unfortunately, you guys picked a card that has a long answer. The question
it.
That's
is,
not unfortunate, yeah.
what is your favorite story about an ancestor?
That's such a good
Oh, that's
question.
such a beautiful they're listening. This is my whole point. They're flirting with us
Yeah.
as we speak.
I actually think that the more you, like, talk to them and
Oh,
incorporate them in
yeah.
your life, the more they show
Yeah.
up for you too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, like, so I had Larry King sign my microphone before he passed away, and I bring it to
Oh.
every Pretty Smart filming, and I'll be like, "Larry, bless this one."
Oh, I love
Oh,
that.
that's so sweet.
And he is.
Okay, favorite story about an ancestor. So my grandmother and her side of the family were from Amsterdam, and they were in the Holocaust. And my grandfather was a tailor, or my great grandfather, excuse me, was a tailor. And so he like anything they had, they sold because they knew the war was breaking out and they couldn't leave. And so he put like gold coins or diamonds in the heel. He sewed them into the heel of his shoe. And they were on a list to go to a death camp, and one of their neighbors who was not Jewish that they knew from work warned him, and so they bartered with the Nazis. Like, they took apart his shoe and bartered with the Nazis to get them into a work camp, and they survived. So
Wow.
I wouldn't be here without that. There were so
That is
many
such a
stories, like, in the
Yeah, I
midst,
know.
like, anybody who was in the Holocaust has, like, unbelievable stories like that,
Mm.
but, I just this not to get so, like, sappy, but I've been like, International Women's Day came around
Mhm.
recently, and I was, like, thinking about what it meant to me, and I thought of my grandmother, and she came to this country at 16 and, like, didn't speak the language and had no money and had just, like, been through the Holocaust, and she was traumatized, and, like, she didn't really get to live out her story because it was interrupted by all these things. And then my mom was like first generation here, and that's a really hard, I mean, you know, that it's like a very hard experience. And she didn't really get to like do, like, she became a CPA. She didn't get to do what she wanted to do. It was better obviously than my
Mm.
grandmother's life, but I feel like I'm the first generation that gets to like live out those women's stories.
Mm.
And so when I feel bummed out or like I want to quit or I'm too tired, I think about that.
Mm.
Um, and that keeps me going. So I think we all come from a long line of women's stories that were just not quite lived out, you know?
Oh,
I love
yeah,
that.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think about that a lot. That carries me through, and then sometimes I do the flip where I'll catch myself in a moment and think, "I'm a walking ancestor." Like, how do I wanna set
Yeah.
up
Oh,
how do I wanna move now for the people that I'm right now, their ancestor? I'm hiding the
Yeah.
gold coins. Like, what's my version of that right here and right now?
Yeah.
I've
I love
never
doing
thought
both.
about that.
Isn't that
Yeah.
a good one?
You gave me chills, Meadow.
You
Yeah.
gave
Oh my
us
God.
chills. Yeah.
You're a walking ancestor. You are.
Yeah.
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 Oh
It's a
my God.
fun one to play with in moments where, like, you need a little bit more bravery, or
Mhm.
you need that interview to go well, or,
Yeah.
whatever.
I think
Yeah.
about, like, the hierarchy of needs, and we talk
Yeah.
about that a lot here, and, like, safety just being, like, the most basic need, and how safety for every generation can look really different. So, for your mom and for my mom and for your grandma, like, safety meant a very different thing for all of us,
Mhm.
and so I think
Mhm.
about that a lot of, like, where my mom was able to get where my grandmother was able to get my mom out
Mm.
of Cuba and what that looked like and the
Uh,
sacrifice that she had to do, then what my mom had to do in order to get my sister and I to where we're at now, and then what I'll be able to do for my future children and for their children.
yes, that is the goal. I think that's what every parent ends up wanting, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
just your kids to be happy and have options.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, Danielle, this was so fun. Thank you
Danielle, I
for
could talk to
coming
you
on.
forever.
I
Yeah.
feel the
We
same
have to go
way.
have that coffee, please.
Yes.
Honestly, anytime you come up to LA, please, please,
Yay.
please. I wanna thank you guys so much. You gave me such a gift. I haven't had, like, a moment to pause, and people
Mm.
just, like, haven't I've been asking questions, and so thank you for asking me such thoughtful questions.
Oh, you're the
Oh, it's
best.
so
You're
our
so
honor.
powerful and cool,
So
and
our honor.
you're the best. You're such an expander for all of us. Thank you.
So are
Truly.
you. You
Yeah.
guys are expanding everybody's hearts and minds. You
Thank
are.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone
Likewise, baby.
smile for a thumbnail.
Yay! Okay, wait.
Everyone get cute.
Ah, I'm like, ancestors. Pointing.
Awesome.
Yay.
Yay!
Amazing.
How's it going, y'all? It's Aaron. Don't let your Monday suck. Don't have those Sunday scaries. I'm tired of everybody waking up in the week saying, shit, it's Monday. You know what goes down? TMV releases every week on Mondays. Make sure you rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching YouTube, yes, TMV has a YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and ring that noti bell and never miss a thing. And also, join the TMV Familia by joining the Thoughts May Vary Patreon and by following @Thoughts May Vary Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for listening.
Great.
There you go.
Thanks, AB.
Got y'all.